It's Monday, March 28th, 2022. I'm Jonathan Lau, and this is 5 Minutes of Proof, a weekly analysis of the science behind ozone therapy. Today, we're going to get into part 4 of the Madrid Declaration on ozone therapy, and we're going to finish up today. We're going to look at a couple addendums. Addendum A, which is on dental ozone therapy, and Addendum B, which is on veterinary ozone therapy. So we're going to jet through dentistry because I have more interest in looking at what they have on veterinary, but there's a lot of excellent information here if you want to look at anything regarding ozone and dentistry and how it should be used. Here's one note that a lot of the studies that were done in ozone dentistry used ambient air and generators that use ambient air. And one other note here, ozonated oil. They recommend that you use something that has a peroxide index. We're just coming out with a new oil that we're going to be selling, which does have these peroxide index and is generated in a way that removes potentially toxic byproducts. So we just wanted to note that as we go through this addendum here. Lots of studies have been done, is all this saying, and 76% of them show positive results. They say it probably would be more if they used generators that utilized pure oxygen instead of ambient air. So keep aware of that. I'm going to scoot down all the way now. They go through different protocols for all the different treatments that you may or may not use in dentistry, and you can take a look. Now we jump into ozone in veterinary medicine, and just quickly here, they don't really have a whole lot yet. This was the first version that looked at veterinary medicine, so really all they have is recommended dosages. That's the gist of what they have here. So they do a brief introduction of a few paragraphs and a few notes on the administration routes, which are pretty standard, pretty known to us already. And then they get into the main routes of ozone application in veterinary medicine, looking at major autohemotherapy, minor autohemotherapy, rectal insufflation, intra-articular, paratendon trigger point. It's not something I've talked about before, not something I'm familiar with really. Paravertebral, of course, subcutaneous, intralesional, vesicourethral. I'm not, again, familiar with that one either. Not something that I don't think our veterinarians are practicing, but definitely something we need to look into. Limb bagging, oil, bidistilled water, which again, that can be distilled water. Bidistilled water just lasts longer, saturates a little higher level, and then ozonated saline. So they just give you high, medium, low doses, and the volume and the concentration that you should be using in their opinion on these things, which vary a little bit from what we recommend, but are pretty close. And then they go into frequent pathologies treated with ozone. So they start with digestive diseases, and I take this information a bit with a grain of salt because it's not necessarily something that's been heavily studied and pathology related treatments. So most of it's not going to vary much from what you're going to see anyways in just the general protocols that we'll give for pretty much anything, but we could learn some things probably from these different protocols or recommendations that they have. Just, it's not a protocol, it's a recommendation for the concentration and the volume, the overall dose basically. So hematology, liver diseases. So you can go through this chart, take a look at it. Oncology, of course, is a big one. They're going to use anywhere from 10 to 35 micrograms. The major minor autohemotherapy, rectal insufflation, intralesional, subcutaneous. So, fairly similar to what we're seeing and how we're using it already at O3 Vets. And then into dentistry for periodontal disease and gingivostomatitis, endocrinology, ophthalmology, cardiorespiratory diseases. The thing to note here is that can be used for all of these things, and then it has been used effectively. But Anyways, I thought I would show you that this exists. Again, if you want a copy of this, check out the description below, and there's a link to it in the description. And it may be helpful for you just to have something there as a resource and a reference. This has been 5 Minutes of Proof. We'll see you next week.